The sacrifice of optionality, or the power of saying no. So we're going to begin with a story that perfectly exemplifies what our sources call discomfort training, and that is the origin story of Spanx founder Sara Blakely.
Yeah. Before the fame, before any of the patents, her path was absolutely defined by forcing herself into positions that demanded a maximum tolerance for rejection.
And when you analyze her biography, it's so clear she wasn't hunting for some hosiery innovation right out of college. She was actively, maybe unconsciously, building a specific type of mental armor.
A very specific type. Our sources point out that she spent a grueling 7 years selling fax machines door to door. And we really need to pause on that number.
7 years.
7 years. That is nearly a decade of sustained, ego-crushing interaction.
I mean, you're not just making sales calls from an office. You are physically walking into offices uninvited, constantly interrupting people's days, absorbing daily, repeated, and often very rude rejection.
To your face.
To your face. Most people I know would quit that job after 7 months, let alone 7 years. So what operational skill does that level of sustained rejection actually build?
It builds the single most important asset for a bootstrapped founder, which is a high tolerance for absurdity and failure. That's it. So when she later went to pitch Spanx, and she was told no by every single major manufacturer.
Which she was.
Every single one. But after 7 years of selling faxes, a manufacturer's no just registers as, another Monday. She had internalized that rejection is just information. It's not a judgment on her worth.
So it lowers the emotional cost of failure.
It lowers it to near zero. Yeah.
And yet, her day job wasn't her only source of this discomfort training. This detail from the sources is just remarkable to me. Her evening routine wasn't an escape. She was selling faxes during the day and doing stand-up comedy at night.
Think about that. Just think about the psychological load there. She was stacking reps in two totally divergent yet equally punishing arenas.
Punishing is the right word.
Absolutely. Cold calling punishes the fear of financial rejection, of business failure. Stage time, especially stand-up, is immediate. It's unfiltered feedback that punishes the fear of social embarrassment.
In front of a crowd.
In front of a live crowd. So while most people would seek soft, passive leisure to recover from a stressful day job like that, she was choosing nights that actively maximized her mental toughness. She chose growth over comfort every single time.
Okay, so here's where all this preparation becomes the operational hinge for Spanx. The idea hits her. She cuts the feet off her pantyhose to wear under some white pants. She starts with incredibly low capital.
Incredibly low. Only $5,000 in savings and literally no background in textile manufacturing or retail or anything related.
And that lack of a safety net, it means she had zero optionality in her choices. Every decision had to be just ruthlessly effective.
Which is why she hit the expected wall so quickly. The established hosiery manufacturers, they just wouldn't take her call seriously. They saw a woman with $5,000 and a weird idea.
The phone was the easy path, the convenient path. And it failed completely.
But her solution wasn't to give up. It was to choose effort over convenience. She got in her car and drove to North Carolina to pitch them in person.
And we have to analyze that trip. This wasn't a quick drive down the road. She was driving hundreds of miles, spending her incredibly limited capital on gas and lodging, and sacrificing days of her time she really could have used to refine the prototype or something else.
It was a brutal commitment of scarce resources, and it was designed to do one thing: force the issue. She understood that if you are physically present, they have to address you. They can't just hang up on an idea.
So she's standing there in front of the manufacturer with the prototype.
Yep. She literally pitched the prototype, standing right in front of him, and asked him to feel the hosiery. It was her sheer, undeniable physical commitment combined with that rejection tolerance she'd built that eventually just wore them down.
And the result was that hinge moment. A key manufacturer finally calls her back, saying the now famous words, "Sara, I have decided to help make your crazy idea."
A yes. That only came because she strategically liquidated her comfort and her convenience, the time and the money for that drive for capacity. In this case, a manufacturing partner.
And this is the part people always forget about bootstrapping. The sacrifice doesn't end when you launch. Blakely didn't suddenly disappear into a life of luxury.
No, not at all. Our sources emphasize that she spent 2 years standing in department stores selling Spanx and talking to shoppers after the launch.
2 years, on the floor, getting live feedback.
That is a massive sacrifice of time and also of ego. She was now a founder with a product on the shelf at Neiman Marcus, and yet she was choosing to staff the retail floor, dealing directly with shoppers, stocking shelves, absorbing complaints.
So why? Why choose the uncomfortable truth of the shop floor over the comfortable, isolated luxury of an executive office?
Because she was hunting for the next great idea. She knew that the truth about her product, how it was really being used, where it failed, what customers truly needed next, that truth lived in those aisles.
Not in a boardroom.
Exactly. By sacrificing the optionality of outsourcing that difficult job, she guaranteed that the next iteration of Spanx would be built on real, unvarnished customer data, not insulated guesswork.
That brings us to the core insight for this section then. The sacrifice is not just working hard. It's the sacrifice of optionality. It's the ability to say yes to every impulse, every invite, every distraction without consequences.
We really should define optionality here. Optionality is the luxury of having multiple paths available to you at all times. When you are bootstrapping, you are deliberately, consciously closing off the high-cost, low-impact paths.
And the default habit for most people is trying to build a business in what you call the leftover cracks of a life that is already full.
Right, a life full of social obligations, personal stuff, leisure.
And you end up failing because the business never gets enough oxygen. It's always the thing you'll get to if everything else aligns, which it almost never does.
That's why the company feels like a constant burden. You feel guilty about your social life and you feel stressed about the business. The founder's trade is recognizing this. For a season, the goal is to shrink your life so your business can grow.
For a season. That's the key. It's temporary.
It's a temporary, intentional downsizing of personal freedom to maximize the company's odds of survival.
So how do we apply that strategic refusal right now? We can start with the Buffett filter.
Yes. Before saying yes to literally anything, a meeting, a hobby, an expense, a request for your time, ask this one question. Will this move the business forward this week?
And if the answer is anything less than a resounding yes, it's a no.
And crucially, it has to be a no without guilt.
Without guilt.
Okay.
And for people who struggle with protecting their time, what's next?
We suggest the 2-night rule. You must protect 2 weeknights that are always builder nights, nights focused on product, on sales, on content creation. Treat those nights like non-negotiable client meetings.
Right. You wouldn't tell your biggest client, sorry, I'm skipping our meeting to scroll Instagram. You can't tell your business that either. Those 2 nights are locked in.
Locked in. And finally, learning from Blakely's commitment to truth, you need to spend time where truth lives. If you are encountering resistance, don't hide behind email. Show up where the decisions are made, partners, investors, or where the customers can't hide.
Live feedback sessions, retail floors, dedicated listening sessions.
Exactly. The truth is often uncomfortable, but that discomfort is the engine of innovation. You are sacrificing the fun of generalized activity for the discomfort of highly directed, high-impact activity. That is the necessary trade of optionality.
That focus on strategic commitment leads us right into section 2. Committing to the second shift. We're talking about those hours you pour in after you've already finished your day job.
And for this, we have to turn to the incredible pressure faced by Daymond John, the founder of FUBU.
John's start it was far from glamorous. Our sources confirm he was working at Red Lobster serving tables, which meant he was watching other people enjoy the kind of financial stability and leisure that he desired.
Right. And the pivot for him was not some leisurely transition. It was triggered by a profound sense of external pressure and internal accountability.
This is such a crucial reality check. John's success didn't come from a flash of inspiration on a relaxed vacation. It came when the psychological cost of staying put became just unbearable.
And the definitive turning point was his mother's blunt assessment. She just told him plainly, listen, you're going to have to figure out what you're doing the rest of your life, one way or another.
Wow, that's direct.
That kind of blunt, loving mandate often provides the necessary discipline that, motivation alone just can't sustain. So the second shift began. When he wasn't clocking in at Red Lobster, he was working relentlessly on FUBU. This is the definition of trading immediate relief for future ownership.
And the production facility was the very definition of bootstrapping.
Oh, absolutely. FUB started in his mother's house in Hollis, Queens. She was instrumental, taught him how to sew. The initial work was all manual, repetitive, physical, labor-making hats, selling them out of a trunk, just obliterating his evenings and weekends.
But this quickly transformed from just a side hustle into an existential family risk.
And this detail must be fully absorbed by anyone listening. Damon John wasn't just risking his $5,000 in savings like Sarah Blakely. He was risking the entire foundation of his family's stability.
His mother. She took out a mortgage.
His mother took out a mortgage on her home to raise $100,000, and in this breathtaking show of support and commitment, turned half the house into a makeshift factory.
That detail is just staggering. The pressure is completely different when you are building a product in the front half of a house that is currently under $100,000 debt secured by the roof over your head.
It changes everything. Failure doesn't just mean disappointment. It means losing the family home. It makes every single hour of that second shift completely non-optional.
So that mortgage, that $100,000, it wasn't just cash.
It was a moral, ethical, and practical deadline. He had to be successful and quickly. What's fascinating, though, is how he managed the effort. It wasn't just frantic chaos. He planned a methodical, minimum commitment.
He started with 6 hours per week minimum on FUBU and used something called goal doubling.
Yes, goal doubling. This is the key difference between Damon John's discipline and the kind of chaotic, unstructured hustle that just leads to burnout.
So how did that process work exactly?
Goal doubling means he wasn't committing to a fixed, crushing 80-hour work week right away. He set a sustainable floor, 6 hours of focused output. Once he hit a measurable target, like selling out a batch of hats or securing a certain amount of cash flow.
Then he earned the right to double his commitment.
Exactly. He doubled to 12 hours, then to 18, gradually expanding the shift only when the business demanded it through proven success. This ensures that every increase in effort is supported by measurable progress, which reinforces discipline instead of just leading to exhaustion.
That's genius, because it frames the sacrifice as a reward for successful execution, not just a desperate attempt to catch up. He traded relief for structure, and that allowed for sustained effort.
Now, let's pivot from Damon John's physical, capital-intensive hustle to the mental and emotional toll of the second shift, as articulated by Ben Chestnut, the founder of MailChimp.
MailChimp is, it's the quintessential bootstrapping success story, but its origin highlights this hidden identity cost of the long, slow, grinding second shift.
That's right. MailChimp started in Atlanta around 2001, and it started as a side project. Chestnut and Dan Kurzius were running a thriving web design agency called Rocket Science Group.
So the agency was the necessary evil. It was the profitable machine that paid the bills.
Right. And MailChimp was the demanding side project, which means the second shift was absolutely mandatory. They spent their nights after client work was finished and their weekends patching bugs, answering support tickets.
And keeping the agency alive just long enough to fund the product's growth internally.
Oh.
They weren't just working. They were sacrificing sleep and stability to avoid taking any external funding.
And this adherence to the bootstrap philosophy, growing slowly, staying in Atlanta, taking no outside money, it forced a massive trade-off. They maintained 100% ownership and control, but the currency they paid for that control was years and years of their personal time and leisure, reinvested directly back into the product.
And you mentioned the hidden identity cost. Years later, after the company became a giant success, Chestnut made this profound confession that just encapsulates everything we're talking about. He said, you start a company, and then you wake up one day and realize you don't remember what any of your hobbies are.
That statement holds so much weight. It's not about one missed party. It illustrates the slow, cumulative loss of leisure, the 1,000 small trades, the canceled vacation, the dropped hobby, the ignored friendship. That all add up over years.
You didn't consciously decide to stop painting or playing music.
No. But the second shift simply consumed the time needed for those activities until they cease to be part of your identity.
That sounds completely exhausting.
Yeah.
And we have to address the elephant in the room here. When Damon John or Ben Chestnut are working what amounts to 16-hour days for sustained periods, how do we distinguish ownership time from just simple, debilitating burnout?
Right. Where is the critical line between strategic sacrifice and self-destruction?
Yes.
That is the most important question here, and the answer is structure. Chaotic, frantic hustle is self-destruction. Structured sacrifice, like John's goal doubling, is sustainable.
So the distinction is measured output.
It's measured, dedicated, high-impact output. You can't burn out answering support tickets for 4 hours if you know why you're doing it and what it achieves. You will burn out if you don't even know why you're doing those 4 hours.
So the successful founders, they define their minimum output, but they also protect their critical recovery activities.
Yes. They protect sleep and exercise. They cut the escape, but they protect the fuel.
So the core insight remains. If you are building from broke or funding your growth with client revenue, The second shift is not optional, it's the bridge.
It is the gap filler between idea and reality, and it's powered by your conscious decision to delay relief.
And that requires a fundamental identity shift. The public defaults to the belief that they deserve relief after working their main job. They deserve to scroll, to drift, to watch 3 episodes of TV.
Right. Entrepreneurship is the conscious choice to recognize that the hours after 5 p.m. are not free time. They are ownership time. If you own the business, those critical hours belong to its survival, not to casual leisure that leaves you exhausted the next morning.
Okay, let's solidify this into some tools and tactics for building a better shift.
First, adopt John's discipline. Define your minimum. Choose a weekly floor you can hit even on your worst, most exhausted weeks. Maybe it's 6 hours, maybe it's 10. Whatever it is, commit to consistency. Hitting 8 focused hours every week for a year is infinitely better than 3 weeks of 30 frantic hours followed by a 2-month crash.
Second, home-based workflow. You have to reduce the friction required to start working when you're tired.
Damon John converted half his house into a factory. Your version should be a ritualized setup, a dedicated desk, a specific kit of tools, a simple checklist that allows you to transition immediately from day job persona to founder persona.
So you rely on ritual, not willpower.
Exactly. When you are mentally fatigued, ritual is what gets the shift started. And finally, we must learn from Chestnut's reflection and separate recovery from escape.
Recovery is necessary fuel. Sleep, exercise, time in nature, keep those.
But cut the escape mechanisms. The endless scrolling, the random low-value social obligations, the binge-watching that actively postpones the work you committed to. Only cut the fluff that costs tomorrow, not the fuel that powers today.
Trading relief for ownership time, but doing so with a disciplined structure. That distinction is absolutely key to long-term survival. Moving into Section 3, we look at the early days of Apple where sacrificing fun wasn't just about time management or evenings. It was about sacrificing physical inputs, turning personal assets into business assets just to meet an immediate life-or-death deadline.
We're examining the launch of the Apple I back in 1976, and this is the ultimate example of founders giving up comfort to generate capacity and, just as importantly, credibility.
The specific possessions they liquidated were hugely symbolic. Steve Jobs sold his Volkswagen bus. Steve Wozniak sold his HP 65 programmable calculator.
And we really need to contextualize what those items meant. This wasn't selling an old pair of sneakers. The VW bus was freedom, mobility, identity. It was the classic symbol of counterculture independence.
And the HP 65 calculator, for Wozniak, that was his most prized possession, a high-tech tool that really defined his engineering identity.
Precisely. They were sacrificing convenience and symbols of their personal identity just to generate the seed capital. This move gave them the financial capacity a few $100s each to buy the initial components. But the real pressure, that came from the operational side.
The moment everything went existential was when Paul Terrell, the owner of the Byte Shop, placed an order.
An order for 50 fully assembled computers at $500 each on delivery. This was a huge validation, but it instantly created a massive production problem.
A classic cash flow crisis layered on top of a credibility crisis.
That's it. They had the order, the gold standard of credibility, but they had zero cash reserves to buy the thousands of electronic components required to build 50 machines. They were facing a massive investment with absolutely no working capital.
So the ingenious yet brutal solution was the negotiation hack that Jobs pulled off. He used the legitimacy of the Byte Shop's purchase order to argue with a parts distributor, Kramer Electronics, to give them inventory on what we call net 30 terms.
And we have to explain net 30 for the listener to really understand the sheer pressure this created. Net 30 terms means the distributor hands over all the inventory today, but the founders must pay the entire invoice amount in full within 30 days.
So they had 4 weeks to perform a miracle.
A miracle. They had to take the components, assemble 50 computers, package them, deliver them to the Byte Shop, wait for the Byte Shop to pay them, and then use that collected cash to pay Kramer Electronics back all before that 30-day invoice deadline hit.
The timeline was brutal, non-negotiable, and terrifying.
There was no optionality left in their lives. The fun was gone, replaced by a 7-day-a-week, day-and-night assembly and testing grind with a small crew. They literally could not afford to sleep much, or the entire venture would collapse, leaving them in massive debt to Kramer.
The dream stopped being an idea and became a shipment deadline.
And that shipment only happened because they had liquidated their comfort, the bus, the calculator, to buy themselves the capacity to meet that contract.
That commitment to survival is what we see echoed later by Phil Knight of Nike, back when it was Blue Ribbon Sports in 1964. Where the Steve sold physical objects, Phil Knight sold stability and status.
The start of Nike was incredibly unglamorous. Knight and Bill Bowerman were importing and selling Japanese running shoes on Itsuka Tiger, and the sales infrastructure was completely non-existent.
The famous sales method was that Knight sold shoes out of the trunk of his car at track meets.
Which is a crucial financial detail. Zero overhead. He avoided storefront costs, salary costs, inventory costs, all by running a mobile, ultra-lean operation.
And crucially, Knight maintained a serious, high-status day job. He was a Price Waterhouse accountant in the early days. He later worked as a CPA and taught college classes. He was not relying on the fledgling Blue Ribbon Sports for his lifestyle.
And that comfortable day job was so essential.
Why? Why didn't he go all in immediately?
Because the numbers showed the business just wasn't stable enough yet. Our sources reveal that in 1964, Blue Ribbon Sport sold about 1,300 pairs for only $8,000 in revenue.
That's not enough to live on.
Not at all. That revenue could not support a full-time professional lifestyle. The accounting job was the necessary financial buffer. It allowed him to absorb losses, maintain credibility, and fund the slow growth of the side hustle without the pressure of needing a salary from shoe sales.
So he used his status job, the comfort, to fund the unglamorous, low-status side hustle, the trunk sales.
Exactly. And he only left the stability of his accounting job in the late 1960s when sales had grown enough that the business was robust enough to handle the inevitable volatility.
The core insight across all these examples, then, is what our sources call the conversion period. Before your business can buy you freedom, you must first sell freedom.
That's a powerful way to frame it, isn't it? You are converting assets that provide comfort, the car, the easy job, the free evenings, into assets that provide capacity.
Inventory, credibility, or the ability to absorb a net 30 deadline.
Right. And the entrepreneur's default tendency is to protect the comfortable lifestyle first, which starves the business of the momentum it needs for survival. The world will not wait for you to feel ready. Net 30 terms or the pressure of a mortgage, they don't care about your weekend plans.
So we need to focus ruthlessly on conversion. Convert comfort into capacity, spare time into repeatable output, and that vague idea of someday into a hard deadline.
Let's translate this into actionable strategy for you right now. First, the toy audit.
Okay.
List 10 non-essentials that cost you time or money excessive subscriptions. The new gadget you don't need, the gaming setup, the extra car. Pick one to sell or pause this week. Liquidate a comfort item to gain immediate capacity or cash runway.
Next, create a ship fund. Every dollar saved from liquidating that comfort or pausing that optionality, the fund goes into a dedicated bucket.
And it's used only for revenue-producing assets. Inventory, prototypes, crucial advertising, tools that directly increase output. This money is sacred, only for shipping the product.
And
Finally, compress the build window. Learn from the Apple I crisis. Treat the time you commit to building as a non-negotiable appointment with a brutal deadline. Consistency beats chaotic bursts of motivation every time because motivation runs out, but deadlines don't.
Okay, so as a company scales, the founder's personal sacrifice has to become institutionalized. It has to become a shared operational culture.
It has to. If you fail to do this, the business will start to leak money through ego, through comfort upgrades, and through unnecessary status spending. And this brings us to Ingvar Kamprad and the founding of IKEA.
Kamprad recognized that the greatest risk to a growing company isn't competition. It's cultural complacency.
Exactly. Prosperity introduces the temptation to upgrade the lifestyle of the business before the profitability justifies it. It's death by comfort. By 1976, IKEA was expanding internationally, and he needed a way to ensure the core value of cost consciousness survived the inevitable influx of capital.
So he did something extraordinary. He literally codified the IKEA spirit in a document called The Testament of a Furniture Dealer.
It's amazing. He detailed principles of simplicity, cost consciousness, and he even guided employees to travel and live cheaply. This wasn't some HR policy. This was a founding manifesto written in stark opposition to corporate luxury.
And the impact of a written standard is powerful, but what really made it stick was his relentless personal example.
Relentless is the right word. Even after IKEA became a global powerhouse and Kamprad was a multi-billionaire, he was famous for buying secondhand clothes, flying economy class, and choosing cheap haircuts. He treated thrift not as a temporary phase, but as a foundational philosophy.
Let's delve into the psychology of this. If the richest person in the room, the founder, is buying used clothing and flying coach, what happens when a middle manager tries to expense a first-class ticket or lobby for a marble-floored office?
That's the cultural hinge. When the founder refuses luxury, frugality becomes culture. It makes fun spending and status seeking socially expensive within the organization. The founder sets a floor on acceptable extravagance.
So when Campray drives an old Volvo,
It's impossible for anyone else in the company to credibly argue they need a new Mercedes or a lavish corporate headquarters. It stops the business from leaking money through ego.
the core insight here is that fun within an organization is often just unmanaged culture. If you don't set explicit rules and examples about how time and money are treated, the default human tendency, convenience, status, celebratory spending will take over and drain your resources.
Willpower doesn't scale across thousands of employees, but rules do. By formalizing thrift, Campride ensured several critical survival mechanisms. First, the business got a longer runway, which allowed IKEA to experiment and absorb failures.
Second, it led to cleaner decisions.
Yep. Every cost was scrutinized based on impact, not image. And third, it built stronger trust because the team saw the leadership living the standard. That creates genuine loyalty to the mission, not just the paycheck.
That's a crucial warning sign for every founder listening who might be seeing their first profitable quarter. That early money is often the business screaming at you, "Please don't spend my oxygen."
Yes, sacrificing fun becomes a leadership mandate. Make restraint normal until the business is stable and truly self-sustaining. If you upgrade your lifestyle the moment revenue hits, you make yourself vulnerable.
If you spend that oxygen.
The next small recession or unexpected cost will kill you because you've traded resilience for status.
So how do we institutionalize this discipline and avoid that death spiral of early ego spending? Let's detail the final set of tools and tactics.
First, adopt the CamProud standard. Write your own testament. Create a one-page document listing what you will and won't do while building. Be specific. No luxury upgrades, no impulse hires based on excitement, no fancy office until X revenue is hit. This document is your shield against internal ego and external pressure.
Second, institute a moratorium. Ban status spending for 90 days. Pause anything bought solely to look successful, regardless of whether you can technically afford it.
Avoid the designer items, flashy gadgets, or premium tools you don't strictly need. Remember, Phil Knight sold shoes out of a trunk while being a high-status accountant. The image should follow the success, not precede it.
Third, and this ties back to Damon John's discipline, track time leaks like money leaks.
Camprad tied cost consciousness to time awareness. Treat wasted hours, endless scrolling, fragmented meetings, low-impact tasks like wasted cash flow. Where is your time leaking out of the business, and how can you plug that hole?
And finally, control the reward cycle by setting a celebration trigger.
Right. Fun and rewards are allowed only after a measurable metric is hit: 3 profitable months, a specific cash buffer target, a successful product launch. This reframes fun from a right to an earned reward, making it intentional, memorable, and motivating.
We have covered a vast terrain today, from Sarah Blakely driving hundreds of miles on a shoestring budget to Damon John's mother mortgaging her home and the Steves selling their most prized possessions just to survive a 30-day deadline.
And the core lesson is clear. This sacrifice is a temporary intentional trade of comfort for capacity and for control.
This is not abstract theory. For you, the listener, we want to transform this knowledge into immediate, actionable changes in your week. We want you to start this conversion period today.
Here are 3 micro steps you can implement right now to begin your strategic sacrifice.
Micro step 1. Cancel or pause. Start by listing your top 10 low-value commitments or time sinks. Then, circle the 2 that genuinely refill your spirit: sleep, exercise, family time, and keep those fiercely.
Then, pause 1 low-value commitment, the lowest hanging offender, for just 14 days. Prove to yourself you can live without that low-impact optionality.
Micro step 2. Define and schedule. Schedule 2 builder blocks this week and define exactly what done looks like before you even start. It must be measurable. I will write 10 personalized sales messages. I will complete the first working prototype. I will finish the pitch deck outline.
Measured output drives measurable progress, even when you're tired.
And micro step 3. Create a ritual. Develop a start ritual for your second shift. The same music, the same specific drink, the same 2-minute clean desk setup.
That ritual is a cue. It reduces the friction required to transition from day job to founder, making consistency automatic when your willpower inevitably fails.
If you leave this deep dive with only 2 sentences, let them be these key maxims from the sources. These define the high stakes of inaction and complacency.
First, if you don't choose your no strategically, the world will choose your never.
And remember this brutal reality. If you won't sell the toy, you'll sell the dream.
We'll leave you with this final provocative thought to consider this week, and it specifically targets the cost of inaction.
What small, non-essential expense, whether it's time spent scrolling, a repetitive subscription, or a comfortable but unnecessary item, are you currently protecting out of habit or sentiment that, if immediately liquidated, would give your business an extra 30 days of crucial runway?
That's a question that puts the entire cost of comfort into sharp, immediate focus.